Welcome to
The News.
It's the News, a show by Tacticon Armament. Does it seem like all of the professionals are just playing doctor, but none of them are actually doctors? Well, that's probably because all of the professionals are playing doctor and none of them are actually doctors. A recent whistleblower from UCLA has exposed the fact that 50% or more of current medical students are failing their shelf exams. To explain how bad this is, the national average expected failure rate is around 5%. UCLA, since 2020, hired a new director of this program and have instituted extremely strict DEI and other political agendas into their medical programs, and they are showing a significant decrease in professionalism. I mean, 50%. That's 45% more people than expected are failing the basic tests to just continue through the program after finishing each one of your clinicals. It's absolutely appalling. And what's even more appalling about it is, despite 50% failure rates, they're not having a 50% graduation rate, so you do the math. Now, the very reason that I started making media and quit being a firefighter was because of this very reason. I watched the destruction of professionalism within the United States Army, and I sought a different career because of it. I then watched the destruction of professionalism amongst career firefighters, and it was around the country. It wasn't just firefighting organizations, it was law enforcement organizations. The destruction of professionalism within these jobs has been a long-running process. It is not a new thing, and it is what creates situations like Uvalde, where 21 people died and another 17 were injured because of a complete failure to act according to their job like professionals by most, if not the entire police department of Uvalde. And ultimately, the shooter in Uvalde was taken down by some off-duty Border Patrol agents who responded. One of them responded from getting his haircut, came from the barber shop to the school to respond to the shooting, and entered the classroom and finished the shooter. It's absolutely inexcusable, the response that happened at Uvalde, but the problem is that response is the standard around the country. Most of these organizations, particularly the ones that are the biggest, are the most broken. DEI and political agendas have removed professionalism and common sense from the conversation, and they have been replaced with this idea that anyone can do anything and we must all finish at the same place, that's communism. And it's not just in professional careers like doctors and police and soldiers and firefighters that you see this destruction of professionalism. It's in every aspect of American life, all the way to the highest seats of power. The Biden administration this week held their first cabinet meeting in 11 months. And can you guess who ran the meeting? It wasn't the president, it was the president's wife, Jill Biden. Now, Jill Biden had a cabinet meeting talking about women's issues and billions of dollars that is going to be granted out to women's health studies and other political things associated with women's studies. It's just really, really interesting that they have been unable to have a cabinet meeting for almost a year now, and then when they finally do have a cabinet meeting, the president is still unable to have the meeting himself. Jill Biden is exposing the fact that she is the sitting president of the United States. An unelected official is running the most important office in the world. And we're all supposed to accept it and be okay with it, because when she has her cabinet meeting, she's talking about women's rights. So you're not allowed to say anything about what she's talking about because, well, why would Joe address women's rights? But this is just an active attempt to pull the wool over your eyes consistently and without failure. Another wonderful example from last week was Tim Walz in Pennsylvania on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris, stating out loud that we as a country cannot handle 4 more years of this administration.
We can't afford 4 more years of this.
Oh, he's right. No one could afford 4 more years of the Democrats. I guess he's campaigning for Donald Trump now.
He's just not a professional. He's so bad at his job that he does not understand that he is the current administration. It's absolutely astonishing to me, the lack of common sense and professionalism that we see in the most important jobs in our country. The people that guard you, that protect you while you sleep, the people that operate on you while you're unconscious in the hospital, the people who are in charge of thermonuclear weapons and geopolitics, they're all terrible at their job. All of them. And at some point, it makes you wonder, well, what are these people doing in these jobs? Because it really doesn't seem like they're doing the actual job, but they're busy. They must be doing something all day. And a great example of what these people are up to is Tony West. Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, who she made sure that ABC moderators would not ask her a question about. Now, Tony West is a lawyer who in 2009 was hired by the Obama administration to head up the civil division of the Department of Justice. His job was to litigate and settle any lawsuit against the federal government around discrimination and other civil-type lawsuits. His job was to protect taxpayer money. His job was to ensure that people that had filed a complaint against the government lost their complaint. Immediately after taking office, however, though, he decided to settle a 10-year disputed claim against the federal government, which by all metrics that I could find online and other people's opinions of the case would have easily been won in court by the federal government. He decided to settle outside of court to the tune of $1.33 billion. Immediately after deciding to settle this case outside of court, the lawsuit ballooned to $4.4 billion because of other people that jumped onto the lawsuit, finding out that the government had caved. And I know that that ultimately seems like a good thing for the American people because they were able to win a case against the federal government, but this is where it gets corrupt and dirty. This is why the professionals aren't professionals anymore. People have figured out how to fleece our system, and this is exactly what's happening. Tony West is just a particularly extreme version of it. When the lawsuit was $1.3 billion, the lawyers that filed it stood to make $130 million off of their legal fees. When the lawsuit ballooned to $4.4 billion, who knows how much money they made. Where it gets even grosser is that one of the lawyers involved in litigating that case against the federal government was a part of the Obama transition team, and his law office personally made $60 million off the settlement of that case. So a man who helps Obama get into office is then paid back by the very same administration to the tune of $60 million. That is a clear-cut case of not only cronyism, but I would make the argument of embezzlement. It was a winnable case by the federal government that was intentionally sabotaged from the highest position of power in charge of the case, and then the lawsuit was allowed to balloon an extra $3 billion, and the big profit out of it was a $60 million payment back to a man that had helped Obama get into the White House. It's just gross. It's just gross. And it doesn't just stop with a $60 million payday to an Obama associate. That same associate also made it mandatory in part of the legal filings that $1 billion would be donated towards Democrat-run political activist groups. This is how political groups like BLM get their funding. And it's just embezzlement at the end of the day. And you could say that the embezzlement and bribery only happened under Tony West and the Obama administration, but you would be very wrong. During the 2020 presidential run and after Trump was elected, there were FBI agents that were caught talking about working in a professional way against the Trump administration and against his campaign. Their name were Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. They both filed a lawsuit against the federal government claiming that the federal government seizing their text messages and personal communications had violated their Fourth Amendment and other... I don't really understand what they could have possibly claimed here. The main issue that they had no stake to claim is that they were texting each other on FBI cell phones. Any phone provided to you from a government agency is foiable. All of the content on that phone is foiable at any moment. To use your work phone provided by the FBI, you had to sign paperwork saying that you understood this. So there was absolutely no case to be held in court that the government seizing their text messages on the government phones was illegal. It just simply wasn't in any way. And yet, the Department of Justice settled with them to the tune of $2 million. It was an obvious bribe. So it isn't just that the professionals are playing doctor and are bad at their job. It's that they're not even trying to do their job. They're just stealing as much taxpayer money as they possibly can for them and their friends. We need accountability in every level of government, from your local police department all the way to the federal government. I was in Vegas this weekend and got to attend a Tulsi Gabbard and RFK rally, and I liked everything that both of them had to say. They are both making an argument that the days of Democrat versus Republican has to end, and that we as the American people need to vote for accountability and common sense in our government. Our government should be acting from a place that encourages the public good. Our government should be looking out for our best interests, because if it's not, what are we paying them for? You as the American taxpayer give the government more than a third of what you make every year, under the belief that that government serves you. Do you feel, as the American taxpayer, like you are being served by your government, or do you now feel like you are serving? Remember, guys, it's okay to be dangerous. I'll see you soon. Don't forget, guys, go to tacticonarmament.com to support this channel. And if you want to support me personally, go to madminutecticians.com and check out The Tactician, manufactured for me by Wolfpack Armory out of West Virginia. It fucks, and I'll see you guys soon.